everybody? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome to another Wednesday. It's the Storytellers show. I'm your man, Robert Kennedy III, RK3. That's me. And right next to me is CB. I'm rhyming. I'm going crazy today. Yeah. What's happening?
I love it, man. What's going on, RK? I'm good, man.
Yeah, man. How are things going today? What's been happening in your world, brother?
Man, it's been interesting. Really just trying to figure out where I fit in my own story. Man, listen.
Wow.
It's interesting how we talking about this thing. You know, this has been a new pivot for me, right? All of the UX stuff, but now really focusing and dialing into storytelling in the business context. And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I think I found the sweet spot for everything that I've been doing for the last 15 years, and it's now coalescing. Sweet.
Yeah. So I love what we're going to talk about today. Last week, we really talked about why storytelling and kind of what storytelling is. And we really talked about a lot of times in corporations, people think that they shy away from storytelling because they say it's squishy, it's touchy feely, it's once upon a timey, and we're doing all of these things. And so we're saying, no, it's not just about telling stories like your personal inner feelings. Because we all know we don't like feelings in corporations, right? It's really
feelings.
Come on, Chris. Nothing more. Okay. No. All right. So it's really about this, the framework of storytelling and the types of stories. And I think what we're going to talk about today is there are two things here. Also, it's telling the right story at the right time. Right. For the right situation, for the right audience. I mean, we could navigate that all the way down. But that's really what we want to go through today. Yeah. You know about the beginning, middle, and end. But are there different types of stories, and what difference do they make?
Oh, man. You know, hey, listen, RK3, listen here, man. I came across something today, and you probably have seen this too, where the beginning is also interpreted as normal. The middle is interpreted as an explosion. So something has to change. And then the end is a new normal. Yeah. Messed me up. It messed me up. Made me realize that, you know, if your middle doesn't have something that's challenging, disruptive, innovative, that shifts the narrative to something that pushes the character. Oh, you got to talk about the 4 C's, right? The 4 C's that you're building out. But if it doesn't do that, then, you know, you won't have the new normal, which is the new mindset, the new realization, the end that's supposed to be totally different, if not a little bit different from the beginning. But you need the explosion in the middle. That's like the emotional piece. Stories without emotion and stories without details aren't stories at all. They're just bland memos.
Okay. That's what we're doing today. All right.
Yeah,
okay. Listen. Yeah. So listen, I absolutely love that. And you kind of mentioned the 4 C's. And so let's talk about that just for a moment here. So we talked about frameworks last week. We talked about how stories are made and kind of the journey that we take people on. So the first piece of that is the C's that we talked about. The stories have to have a context. They've got to have characters. They've got to have a conflict, and then they've got to have a conclusion. Right? Characters, context, conflict, conclusion. And we're breaking that down, but we also want to get to the point eventually where we're talking about, okay, how do you use that in the corporate setting? How do you use that in a presentation? How do you use that in communicating? You know, maybe you're sending, it could be an email, it could be something just casual that you have. You know that you've got something high stakes that you've got to navigate. How do you use storytelling inside of that? So let's start talking about that a little bit. Let's break down some of that stuff together, man. So I think the first, as we talk about stories, right? Let's walk through some of the different. Okay, Mark's asking, what are the 4 C's? I think we just went through that, Mark. Excellent. Tony Kattengal, coming in from Silicon Valley. Welcome, brother. Hey. And then my buddy Woon Wangpa. What's happening, brother? All right. Love it. So let's chat a little bit about some of the story types. I know one of the ones that people talk about a lot is this thing right here, the hero's journey. right? And we're not going to go deep into that today, but give us a quick snippet of the hero's journey. What is that?
Yeah, so the hero's journey has to have at least there's 7. First of all, okay. You're giving me such a difficult time. So let's give some context, right? We building up. Let's give the context to this thing. So, Joseph Campbell, 1949, he realizes that as he's studying ancient Near East narratives and modern narratives, in his day, he's realizing that they all have similar components, similar themes. And so he creates what's called the monomyth, which then is interpreted as the hero's journey, which means that there are a few things that you need to have. First of all, there's 17 stages, but I'm just going to give like 3 to 4. The first one is you're in your ordinary world as the hero. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have a mentor that comes along and challenges you to realize that there's more to your world that already exists. You refuse the call. That's usually the step 3, where you're like, I don't know. Why me? I'm not sure. And then eventually you get that push, that extra nudge, or the mentor will give you a brand gift that's business. Give you a gift to take into the special world. And that's when you cross the threshold. This is where the dragons and the magic and all of that stuff lies. For those of us who are entrepreneurs, we would say pulling the ripcord from the 9 to 5, and then you get into entrepreneur land, you realize that there are things that are totally different. It's that kind of a thing. And then from that space into the special world, you gain some new skills. You realize what your superpower is. You go through this whole idea of the mortality where you realize, wow, I ain't nothing. But then from realizing that, you then are reborn into actually something. And long story short, you transform, you get the prize, whatever that prize is in the special world, and you go all the way back to your ordinary world with the boon, with the gift, with the prize, with the special thing, and you become the master of both worlds as you are now using your special gifts in the ordinary world, and it starts all over again. It's a cycle.
So that's one, and I'll share another one, and then you got a lot of goodness for us today, and we only have another 22 minutes, so I want to make sure that we get to this. So another type of story that people utilize, or that you can use, is, and I like these are nested stories. And so what exactly is a nested story? It's kind of what it sounds like. It's a story inside of a story. So I'll give an example. I remember in college, I was in the basement of one of the dorms getting ready to set up for a choir rehearsal. I played keyboards for this choir, and this was my freshman year of college. I was setting up the keyboards, plugging in stuff, getting ready to turn everything on, and then I saw this man. He was standing in the chapel where we were, about 3 or 4 rows back. He was just kind of watching. I felt a little bit nervous. I felt like he was stalking me. It was kind of creepy, right? And so he's looking at me, and then I kind of say, hey, I recognize who he was. He was a chaplain that was on campus. And he came up to me and he said to me, hey, I've noticed that you play for the group, but there's something else that I see in you. You're behind the scenes, but I see something in you that allows you to be out front. Let me tell you a story. So he tells me a story about like animals, lions and tigers or whatever. I don't even remember the full story, but he tells me the story. So what a nested story is me on stage telling this story about the man telling the story, right? And the lesson that I pull for the audience ultimately is the lesson that he gives me from that story. So I'm telling them the lesson that I learned inside of the lesson. Right.
It's so meta.
So that's another story type that you can use as you go into, as you think about how to utilize storytelling in organizations and corporations in presentations. All right. So
who does that well, by the way? I know we're going to get who does that well is Christopher Nolan. I just watched Dunkirk for the very first time, and I said, oh my goodness.
So for those of you who don't know who Christopher Nolan is, Batman. So
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Inception. So the reason why when you're talking about nested stories, it reminded me of Inception, where you have that dream within a dream within a dream. It's crazy. Yeah. But so for those of you that are movie buffs, or you kind of that is a great understanding of just what it is to go on stage and share a story about a story, which then helps people to resonate about the story, and then also resonate with you because you're the one telling this. It's crazy, but it it captivates them and it creates emotion for them to want to change their perception and for you to transform their thinking in some way to make some sort of decision. So yeah, man.
Yeah. so let's dive in a little bit, man, because we only have a certain amount of time. We only have a certain amount of time.
Yep.
All right.
I know.
So you I think a lot of the work that you do, especially, and I do some of this as well, is around customer experience on some level and figuring out with organizations how to get people to move from point A to point B. How to get them to make a decision, how to make a purchase, how to do certain things, how to create an action, right? Call to action, how to do that stuff. So inside of all of that are different types of stories as well, right? And we got to kind of pull them out at the right time. So start telling us a little bit about the different types of stories. So I think we talked about 4 of them before the show, and we want to give some maybe examples and walk through some of them. What's going on, Asa? Asa's like, these cameras are so good. Thanks, brother. Love it. Yeah. So start us with, I think the first one that we talked about was, what was it? Let's
the founder
pull
story?
them up and you just
say
again?
Yeah. We'll just
pull
founder story Yeah. So the value story, this is a good one. This is, we're talking about from an organizational standpoint where you need to find a way to tell your not just your customers, that's separate. You need to tell your employees or share with them why they're doing what they're doing. So think of it not just as an employee handbook, which is like the who, what, when, where, and why, and how we created what we are as a company, but you need to actually give almost case studies, or maybe even to an extent, some once upon a time narratives where they can look back and say, oh, wow, this is why the founder did what he did. Oh, okay. So being in this department, if I treat customers in this particular way and they respond in this way, then, they'll come back. We'll create brand loyalty by me just saying, have a great, wonderful, fantastic, amazing day. Because that's just our line that we use at the end. It would be too long to give like examples for each and every one, but I want us to look at it conceptually and think about not just an employee handbook for your value stories, where you say, we believe in work ethics, collaboration, innovation, and competency. Start building out scenes, scenarios for each one of those, even if you need to nest them into your employee handbook, right? And here's the other thing before we get to the next one, Rob. A lot of this communication is going to come from the managers or from the directors orally. And I think we miss that point. Sometimes we stick with emails and memos and newsletters, but a lot of it has to be when you going onto the sales floor or by you connecting with them face to face. Obviously, it's going to be different now. We're work from home, virtual. But the point is this: they need to hear you say it. And so, that's value story though.
So before we even go on, I think let's stick on value story for just a second. I think that every one of us needs to dig in and have our own value story. So even outside of a corporate setting, right? If I go to a networking event, a lot of times I go to a networking event, before the pandemic, and people ask this same question at networking events. So what do you do? Right. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm an IT person, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a banker, or I'm this. Right. Or I'm an entrepreneur. I do this. So I have pivoted quite a bit from what I do to what I believe.
That's good.
Right. That's good. So a lot of times, I'll share something, but especially when I'm on podcasts, people say, can you share a little bit more about your business and what you're up to? And I'll start out and I say, well, first, I believe that everyone's words deserve to be heard. That is my core value. That's the thing, that flag that I've planted. That's what I operate by. Right. Yeah. So now the question is, Robert, I love that. I love that you believe that. How do you do that? How do you make sure that people get their words heard? Well, I do it through storytelling.
Oh, that's so good.
I do it through helping them to confidently communicate, especially on video and online. That's how I do that. Right?
Oh man,
So if you take the time to figure out your own value story, right? And instead of saying what you do, start with what you believe. Start with why you believe that. taking the time to develop that. My man, Mark Thevenin's in the comments here, and I love what he does. Right. I love what he's up to. By day or by trade, he's a dentist, a dental professional. And he also does a lot in the music realm. He creates these amazing videos, these amazing worship videos, right? He does a lot of work in that, and I love it. So if I were to, ask Mark, what do you do? He would have to tell me a bunch of stuff, but he could also tell me about his core by saying, well, you know what? I believe this.
Yeah.
And that's why I do this. So I want y'all to get that. I believe this. That's why I do this. Right. Yeah. So that's the importance of the value story and really understanding your own value story. First of all, before we go to the next one, for those of you that are on here, that are watching, listen, make sure that you share this out if possible. We're going to be back doing this on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. on YouTube. If you go to the YouTube channel, it is just look up RK3 TV and you'll find that. We'll make this a little bit more clear in the next few weeks. We've just started this and we're loving this journey so far, man. I'm digging it. And we're going to be it's going to be on LinkedIn as well every Wednesday, 1 p.m. And we're going to be on Facebook as well. So cool. So let's go. What's the next one, man?
Yeah. The next one,
you tell me and I'll bring it up.
Okay, founder story. And by the way, with the value story, the other side is convincing customers that you have what they need. So that's the other side. So there's an internal and then there's an external piece that I don't think hopefully we can talk about. Both of these work inside and outside of the organization, client facing and in the workforce. Okay, so the founder story is simply that. And you've seen some of the What's Your Stories that I've done recently over the last few weeks. And this is simply for the person who is building or starting a business to get the attention and persuasion of the investor or stakeholders to believe that what they are building is worth investing or purchasing. That's it. I'm going to keep this one simple. And how you do that is by sharing something about who you are. So we're talking about context, conflict, the character, which would be you, and the actual conclusion. You have to share with the investor or with a stakeholder, why did you build? You're talking about belief. Why did you build what you built? Yeah. First of all, before you even talk about why, what were you doing before that? What was the pre-existing problem? What was the solution? And why were you so impassioned to make sure that it gets solved? Who was it being solved for? But how did you transform in the process? So there's that normal, explosion, new normal. And in this case, for the founder, I was a regular person. Then something happened, an idea or an event, and then I became a different person with these new solutions. So that's one way of explaining the founder story. You're connecting the investor or the stakeholders or the customers with your thing, with your entity, with your services, but through you. You are the connector. There's an old saying that says that the closest way or the fastest way between a human and the truth is a story. So you're sharing your truth as the founder so that they can say, ooh, not only do I like your idea, but I like you. And that's what a lot of investors do, right? They invest in the person first. Warren Buffett says that all the time. He's like, the business is good, but I actually want to read the person. And if I think I can trust them, then I'll put money behind them. So that's the founder story.
Yeah. So that founder story is critical. And I want to encourage people out there. A lot of times I've come across people sometimes that they shy away from the founder story or the founder or even starting a business in some cases because they don't feel like they have something unique. They're like, okay, I'm just selling T-shirts. Yeah, I needed money. So I saw people selling T-shirts. So I said, I'm going to sell T-shirts. Right. And we can all start there. Yeah. But it's an important thing for us to sit down for a second and say, wait a minute. Why am I really doing this? Because I have this saying, I'm like, if your why isn't strong enough, you won't be around long enough, right? Because if you have no connection to what it is that you're doing, then it becomes harder for people to see your passion for what you're doing.
It's cool. It's cool, Rob. What's cool is that if your founder story is strong enough, you don't even have to sell the features of what you're trying to, the solution. Like you can say, oh, there's this story where this one guy, he's, they're overseas. There's this couple, they're overseas and they're selling cologne. The guy over the counter is selling cologne. And before he even is able to open the box and spray it on the guy he's never interested in buying things, especially overseas or shopping, he gives this whole narrative. I think it's called like 8 and Bob, like that's the name of the cologne, for JFK. Anyway, long story short, he was like, I need this. Where can I get this? By the way, they were sold out. The reason why he was so interested wasn't because of how it smelled or the features, but because of how the name was even attached to this elegantly packaged cologne that he hadn't even smelled. So that's the whole point, right? Where as a founder, if you can get people to believe in your why and to believe in your story arc, you don't even have to really touch on, take this with a grain of salt, y'all. If y'all are doing pitches, you have to. Numbers tell stories too. But you wouldn't have to try to sell so hard the features of the thing you're trying to solve. No, have them believe in you first. And that's what the founder story solves.
Love it. All right, so let's jump to purpose. The purpose story.
So purpose story, mission, vision, values. This is like the what, the why, and the how. So most people get this wrong because they believe that your vision, or they do synonymize vision with mission. The vision is what you want to become over time, especially between maybe a 5 to 10 to 15 year span. The mission is how are you going to do that day in and day out. And then the values is what are going to be the key things that are going to drive or sustain your mission to fulfill your vision over time. So for all intents and purposes, your purpose story is your why story. Why are you doing this? Why are you getting up in the morning and showing up to your job? Why does your business even exist? Not just what is the problem it's trying to solve, but why is it solving it to begin with?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that maybe we share inside of that also is, I think we've mentioned the word why before, and I don't want to have people confused about, okay, so which one of this is the why story? So the purpose is really the why story. The founder story is almost like it's the when story. I was doing this. I was just running around one day and I noticed this gap. Or I noticed this something that was broken. I noticed this thing that wasn't being done. And it was at that moment that something clicked and I decided, hey, I can do something about this. I'm interested in finding a solution to this. I'm interested in helping make this happen. So the purpose might be the why, the founder story might be the when, and the value story is the what story. It's what I believe.
Oh, look at we are improving on the framework as we go along. I love this. You got the what, the why, the when. Let's do the last. Oh, by the way, and with the purpose story, it's not even just for the customers. Remember, guys, this is dual facing. So there is the why for, why I should buy the product, but then there's also the why for the employees. They have to know why they're even working. Like, why are they showing up every day to your business and picking up the phone or sending off those emails? And so you got to think about it dual facing. It's not telling the right story, but it's also telling the right story in the right way, like Rob mentioned earlier. So gotta keep that in mind.
And you can use this at different times. So, I mean, for example, I think if you have employees or if you've got a team that is maybe they've been around for a little bit and they've kind of become status quo, right? And they've forgotten the mission or the vision or the purpose behind this. I mean, you can talk about the purpose, but it may be good for the founder to sit down at the table, around the conference table, and say, hey, listen, here's the day that I started this business. Here's what I was doing. I was in this situation. I was experiencing this thing, and all of a sudden it hit me. That's the day that I said, my world can't be the same anymore. I've got to do something different. Okay. So now you're making a connection with your audience. You're making a connection with your team to say, hey, wait a minute. Is there an experience in my life, or is there something similar that connects me to that experience? And if you can make those connections, the more connections, not only with customers, the more connections that you can make with people, the more likely they are to be moved to action for whatever reason. That might be to build something internally, or it might be to purchase something to build or transform their lives externally from your business. Go for it, man. All right. We got one more.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I had to put myself on mute because you know what's going on in the background here.
You're building your mansion.
Here's the last one, customer story. And it's interesting with this customer story. It's not even about you. This is now where you're giving your customers or clients the opportunity to share the value, the results, the benefits, what they've experienced with you to other people. So in all intents and purposes, this is testimonials. This is the easy one, right? The customer story isn't your persona story. We'll have to do like a part 2 to this. Your customer story is literally the story of your customers. Case studies, testimonials, maybe short video clips, which are still testimonials, about what they went through, their normal, the explosion, which was you showing up as the business and fixing their problem, and then now their new normal, how they transformed because of your services or your products.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. I think that word that you just used right now was crucial, testimonials. And a lot of times we don't put enough, value is not the word I want to use. We don't pay enough attention in our businesses, in our personal space to the value of testimonials, although we use them all the time, right? I mean, your business might be a year old or your organization might be 10 years old or whatever. When people come to you, especially if they don't know you, what's the first thing that they do? They're trying to find out what are other people's experience of you, with you, around you, through you, whatever it is. I mean, you buy anything. What's the first thing you check out the Yelp reviews, right? You buy a book on Amazon. Okay, how many reviews does this book have? You go to, I mean, I was going to say Amazon again because everybody buys everything on Amazon. But you buy on Amazon and you look, if this thing has 3 stars, you're saying, wait a minute. Something's up. Should I invest my money? Should I purchase this thing? Should I buy this thing? And you start to rethink it based on the stories of other people. Right. And you've heard this thing. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And the know you doesn't necessarily mean that they came up to you and shook your hand and says, hey, I'm Robert. Hey, I'm Chris. Good to meet you. Nice. What kind of breakfast do you like? What's your favorite color? That's not right. That's not necessarily the knowing part. It's the knowing that, hey, wait a minute. This person is just like me. This person, this company has the same value systems that I do. This person, this company knows people like me. This person, this company caters and takes care of and is compassionate about people just like me. Therefore, I think I like them. And because I like them a little bit, maybe I might start trusting them. And because I trust them, hey, I might want to buy something from them or do business with them.
It's such a great point. Rob, the other side, I don't want people to think that there's only 4 types. So those are like the 4 basic. On the other side, though, you have stories that are built around the objectives that you're trying to do. And so maybe at another time you can talk about those, but they're like another framework that has like 8 different narratives or based on the kind of thing that you need to do with your business or for your employees or for your customers. You then need to create the narrative around that. So anyway, I know, man, it's already 1:29.
Yep.
But
we're out of time.
But I just love it. Yeah. So I think we got to talk about maybe in another session, now that we have the kinds of stories, how should we be sharing those stories using the power of story mapping?
Love it. So let's actually do that for next week. Let's talk a little bit more about story mapping. And Chris is going to whip out his whiteboard and his pencil, and he's going to start drawing some stuff. And I'll sit here and judge his artwork on this side. Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, y'all, it's been amazing. I hope you've seen and gotten some value from the show today, from our content. I see some stuff. Thank you, Rebecca. So many good thoughts. Listen, share the show. We're going to be back on next week. We're going to be speaking. Hold on one second. Let me get the outgoing music playing. We're going to be speaking about mapping your stories next week. What stories do you need to use in what specific situation, and hold on, I'm trying to say that another way. How to use the right story in the right situation to get you the right results. How about that? So Chris is going to be story mapping with us, because I'm just the MC and Chris is like,
whatever.
I mean, this is like back in the day. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper. This is like Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, right?
Whatever. Get off the show. We're done.
Listen, y'all, it's been a pleasure. Hang out with us. Join us next week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. for the Storytellers show. I'm Robert Kennedy III, Arcade 3, and this is my man on the other side,
CB.
Yeah. Good to hang out with y'all today. Peace.